El químico y activista Patrick Roddy asegura que los huracanes Irma, José y Harvey han sido fabricados por el hombre. Esta es la conclusión a la que ha llegado tras estudiar las imágenes de la NASA, un hecho que pondría de manifiesto la intervención del hombre al haber materiales de geoingeniería alrededor de los huracanes.
La manipulación climática es un hecho. Hay que tener en cuenta que, por ejemplo, en 1978 España mandó a su ministro de Asuntos Exteriores por aquel entonces a Nueva York, ¿vale?, para que ratificara el acuerdo de la Convención Egmont de las Naciones Unidas, en las cuales más de 20 países firmaron en que no podrían manipular el clima con fines hostiles o bélicos. Y estamos hablando de 1978.
When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain.
Have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Flooding and even hurricanes, all of them could be subject to weather modification.
Many ask why the government, our own government, would modify the weather in a way that does immense harm to our own citizens and to the life support systems of the planet as a whole. And without doing any investigative research whatsoever, many choose to completely deny that climate modification could be real and ongoing, with many potential objectives and agendas being carried out in what can only be considered programs of weather and biological warfare. The U.S. government and the U.S. military have been fully involved in not just weather modification, but hurricane modification for at least 70 years. Project Cirrus was underway 70 years ago. With only 80 kilograms of dry ice, profound manipulation of a hurricane was achieved. How much more effectively can the weather makers now manipulate hurricanes when they have the air power to dump hundreds of tons of patented materials into such storms? Project Storm Fury, which was historically a part of the ongoing and expanding U.S. government and U.S. military hurricane manipulation programs. Aerosol dispersions over the oceans are now constant and blatant. The vast majority of populations have absolutely no idea that the ongoing global climate engineering Manhattan Project is tearing the climate and life support systems of the planet apart. The toxic heavy metal and chemical aerosols are also contaminating our breathable air column and the entire biosphere as a whole. Radio frequency microwave transmissions manipulate the electrically conductive heavy metal nanoparticulates that have been seeded into the atmosphere and the cloud formations. The manipulation of these particulates in turn manipulates air masses and thus storm formations. The climate engineers have been aggressively suppressing and or redirecting Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico hurricanes for over 12 years. The weather makers have long since achieved the ability to decide what develops, what doesn't, and what direction it travels, and who gave the military-industrial complex the right to play God with Earth's climate and life support systems. Welcome to our geoengineered world. While the world continues to freefall into abrupt climate shift, geoengineered cooldowns with highly toxic chemical ice nucleating elements have helped the world's largest military to keep the most population-dense regions in the U.S. from feeling the full impact of what's unfolding. This is the psychological aspect of climate engineering, keeping populations confused, divided, and in many cases pacified in regard to the true state of the unfolding global climate and environmental collapse until the last possible moment. The paradox is this: climate engineering is the single greatest climate disrupting and environmentally destructive assault ever launched by the human race. All available climate data proves the climate engineers possess the processes and resources to suppress and or redirect hurricanes. If the weather makers didn't want Hurricane Harvey to happen how it did or where it did, it would not have happened. If the weather makers wanted to completely suppress Hurricane Irma, to diminish or dissipate it, or to steer it out to sea, they could. Again, available historical data proves this fact. Disasters like that serve many agendas for the global elite. In the case of Harvey, there were and are oil prices and production to consider, potentially increased economic activity due to the need to fix the disaster, the creation of mass distraction while the power structure pushes toward World War III, the potential disabling of populations, thus rendering them unable to stand up to government tyranny, the opportunity to move the military into place in preparation for already unfolding and inevitable societal collapse. But again, our biosphere is imploding. We're already in a runaway climate shift scenario heading toward a mathematically certain near-term global omnicide if we remain on the current course. The climate engineers will do anything they can and everything they can at any cost to the web of life to hide this fact from populations. In their attempt to postpone public panic for as long as possible, and thus to keep the military-industrial complex in full control, it would seem the power structure is willing to exterminate life on Earth.
Thanks to a system of satellites, natural disasters have become a thing of the past. We can control our weather.
So satellite has a bad comm, that happens.
Not a satellite, all of them.
This wasn't a malfunction. It was intentional.
There's potential for catastrophic weather events on a global scale. A geostorm.
Our government's first duty is to its people, to our citizens, to serve their needs, to ensure their safety, to preserve their rights, and to defend their values. As President of the United States, I will always put America first. It is an eternal credit to the American character that even after we and our allies emerged victorious from the bloodiest war in history, we did not seek territorial expansion or attempt to oppose and impose our way of life on others. Now, North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles threatens the entire world with unthinkable loss of human life. The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. It is far past time for the nations of the world to confront another reckless regime. The Iranian government masks a corrupt dictatorship behind the false guise of a democracy. Its oil profits go to fund Hezbollah and other terrorists that kill innocent Muslims and attack their peaceful Arab and Israeli neighbors. We must deny the terrorists safe haven, transit, funding, and any form of support for their vile and sinister ideology. We will stop radical Islamic terrorism because we cannot allow it to tear up our nation and indeed to tear up the entire world.
temas fundamentales para reformar la ONU son tres. Primero, si el terrorismo va a ser definido exactamente respecto a los países que lo propician. Segundo, si se seguirá aceptando que la intervención en otras naciones ocupando ilegalmente territorio sea permitida. Y tercera, y la más importante, cómo se decidirá si una nación acepta o no estos requisitos, estas medidas. La resolución palestina sobre Israel no ha sido tomada en cuenta. Tampoco se ha tomado en cuenta que hoy día existe una intervención u ocupación ilegal por parte del régimen estadounidense en Siria o Irak. Tampoco se ha tomado en cuenta que Arabia Saudita invade países, detona bombas y elimina personas. Es decir, en este momento, uno de los temas principales tiene que ser cómo se hace efectiva toda resolución de las Naciones Unidas. Es que en realidad Hollywood está presente en el mundo y este es un teatro donde se hace discursos altisonantes. Sin embargo, en realidad se está trabajando en acuerdos secretos, como por ejemplo la fragmentación de Irak. Es decir, en la ONU se plantea un espectáculo y en realidad por debajo se sigue apoyando al terrorismo y se sigue apoyando los procesos en contra de la soberanía. Ese es el espectáculo que se da en la ONU.
All this stuff from Trump and May this week about the need for UN reform is related to the plan to move and morph the UN into a fully fledged world government, a centralized dictatorship dictating to every community and every country. So that's what we're seeing now. This word reform is a classic buzzword for this hidden hand. Remember how Tony Blair was always talking about reform, reform, reform. What that is a code word for is changing the status quo to take us further down the road to this agenda for the centralization of global power. We need to watch this very carefully from now on, because you're going to see more and more talk about the need to reform the United Nations. And you're going to hear them talking about the fact that the United Nations has to have more power.
South Korea and North Korea have tried at different times to initiate some kind of a meaningful peace process. And almost at every turn, the United States will intervene in one way or another to try to break up that sort of bilateral negotiations between the North and the South. The United States has a demilitarized zone between the North and South Korea with 30,000 troops and military contractors and civilian personnel based there. They have a base in Okinawa. They have a base in Japan. They have a base in Guam. They have a base in the Philippines. The problem is the United States. I'm sure that North and South Korea could eventually work this out to have a peace treaty, but that's not what's happening now. The United States is intervening for one simple fact, because the whole Pacific Rim agenda is predicated on poor relations with North Korea and war footing. Otherwise, the U.S. would have no business in the Pacific, and the only reason they're there is to counter China. So North Korea is just theater. This is a staged, managed geopolitical theater, and it's very dangerous. What the United States is doing right now, what this president is doing right now, and pushing the envelope in a very negative way. If you listen to the words of Donald Trump at the UN General Assembly, wouldn't you want a nuclear deterrent as well? He's threatening to destroy a country. There's 25 million people that live there, and it's an idiotic statement by the United States president for this simple reason. If you nuked North Korea, you would also create huge nuclear contamination that would kill so many people in the South. It would make huge areas uninhabitable and parts of China. It's not going to happen. Everyone knows the United States is not going to nuke North Korea. It's the message that the military-industrial complex in the United States, all the defense contractors, they want to hear this. This is, the message of the neoconservative war hawks. So that's basically who he's talking to. In terms of diplomacy, it's completely counterproductive. In terms of China relations, it's very poor form. This is just basic U.S. behavior. A government that's dominated by the Pentagon, by the defense industry, by these interests.
So far, to me, this has all the makings of a Manchurian Candidate. The first day of reporting, there's nothing about this guy. And I always wait. You don't ever have to wait too long to see all the irregularities, to see all the lies, and then to see the demonization of the supposed shooter, which, of course, they're always dead. So dead men tell no tales. It's deliberate. A lot of people that call themselves alternative media, they make the mistake every time something like this happens to say it didn't happen or no one was killed. And that's a disservice because our governments have no problem killing us, okay, for their political agenda. So if Americans have to die, so be it. And now they're claiming this is the biggest mass shooting in American history. What a lie. 9/11, where 3,000 of us were killed for a political agenda. How did this guy get these super heavy, gigantic guns? How did he get so many of them into a hotel room? You know, it wasn't like he's 20 years old and could book it up the stairs with 17, machine guns. It's the same old story. I don't want to investigate them anymore because they are all the same. Every single time we have a shooting like this, gun sales go up. And this happened the same week that Congress is supposed to vote on whether or not to legalize silencers for everybody's guns. Well, you have to remember, these people are on a global mission to put the world in a global continuous state of fear so that we can have a one world police, one world army. So these things don't happen simultaneously by accident.
Cataluña no será el único ejemplo en Europa. Esto también es lo que se está hablando ahora, porque la caja de Pandora está abierta. Dicen una caja de Pandora que vendría, por ejemplo, pues por las voluntades y aspiraciones de otros países, o incluso dentro de las mismas regiones españolas, por ejemplo, el pancatalanismo o los deseos de independencia que podría tener el pueblo vasco.
Yo pienso que ahora mismo la Unión Europea está jugando un doble juego. Un doble juego porque en la Unión Europea hoy en día no responde al interés de los ciudadanos en su conjunto, sino que está respondiendo al interés de una casta política que tiene otro tipo de intereses. Entonces, esta casta política de la Unión Europea lo que quiere son estados débiles. Quieren estados muy débiles, sumisos a intereses de entidades supranacionales, a los que se pueda manejar bien, a los que se les pueda imponer bien, ya sean políticas de recortes, políticas internacionales, sanciones a terceros países. Esto es algo evidente. Cuanto mayor unidad, mayor fuerza. Sí podríamos denominar a lo que está sucediendo ahora mismo en Cataluña es una revolución de color. Y cuando hablamos de revolución de color, recordamos que hubo una revolución de color también en Serbia. Hemos visto cómo hace poco ha habido una revolución de color en Macedonia, que no ha tenido éxito del todo. Hemos visto cómo hubo una revolución de color en Ucrania, y tras todas esas revoluciones de color, al final todas se apuntan a Soros como cabeza visible, como un think tank, como una fuerza de choque financiadora. Soros es el que ha estado financiando al separatismo catalán.
So basically, cancer is abnormal growth of cell. And basically, they lose their apoptosis, programmed cell death. They don't die, they become immortal. And your body's immune system usually take care of the abnormal cell in your body. We do all have about 10 to 100,000 abnormal cells every day. But our immune system's job is to get rid of those cells if your immune system is perfect. If you don't have virus that is already trying to fight, if you don't have too much chemical or other stuff going on in your body. Then they keep growing and growing, increasing in number, and then you get a tumor.
And so the tumor really is a result of a lot of years of things going wrong.
Suppression of immune system, exactly.
Cancer is the major breakdown in systemic communication. So what happens with the cancer, when the communication is running correctly and our lines of communication are open, then the body detects that growth on an early stage and suppresses it. However, when the lines are broken, that's when it happens that the body does not see the developing tissue until it is too late.
The present orthodox view is that cancer is a lump or a bump. That's the cancer. And if that's the assumption. Now, if that is true, then to get rid of cancer, all you have to do is get rid of the lump or the bump. And hence we have surgery. Well, that gets rid of the lump or the bump. Or we have chemotherapy, which poisons the lump or the bump. So we got rid of it. Or we have radiation, which burns it and got rid of it. And you undergo these three therapies, and if you get rid of the lump or the bump, the doctor will say, it looks like we got it all. But did they? No, the statistics show that in most cases it comes back. They didn't get it all because that was never the cancer in the first place.
What is a cancer cell and where does it come from?
Well, we used to think that any cell could become cancer except for a few limited ones. We thought that if you irritate a cell enough and damage its DNA enough, it'll become immortal and just keep growing. Now we find out, well, that's not true. Only stem cells seem to be the source of cancers. If you damage the DNA of the stem cell, it'll become immortal. And then it just keeps producing more and more cells. It wakes up and it's producing lots and lots, thousands, millions, billions of cells. And it becomes a cancer. The trouble with chemotherapy and conventional treatments is they have no effect on the cancer stem cell. They only kill the daughter cells, the cells that are produced by it. So the tumor will shrink and they'll claim success, but you haven't killed the stem cell, so it all just comes right back. And what they found is when it comes back infinitely more aggressive than it did before.
So stem cells are the key, and chemotherapy and radiation actually enrich stem cells. Despite this fact, as we've already learned, many doctors from countries across the globe might even lose their license if they do not prescribe chemo and radiation. Are you beginning to see the way that Big Pharma has its tentacles throughout this medical cartel, especially when it comes to chemotherapy?
There are many physicians who are truly authentically motivated to want to help people, but there is this pervasive fear that they are going to be discredited and ostracized in their own community, and when they start to embrace some of these alternative philosophies. So that's a strategy that's used to suppress this type of information. When you've got tens of billions of dollars of revenue, there is no limit to the clever and sophisticated techniques that you can acquire to manipulate the masses.
From the very onset, from the very planning of chemotherapy, from the very scientific approach, it is a deception. It is an unethical, deceptive business that creates illusions for millions of people, and every scientist involved in it. I'm not blaming the doctors. They sometimes don't have the education to go at that length. But every scientist knows that it is a huge fraud.
Yes, modern medicine is a business. And just like any business, the goal is to grow this business and also to eliminate competition and to maintain the monopoly.
Chemotherapy uses the most powerful toxins known to humans. And these toxins, of course, are being sold to us as substances that can kill cancer cells. And also the very substances that are being used to fight cancer are cancer-causing chemicals. So instead of eliminating cancer or curbing cancer, we are inducing, generating new cancers.
And you'll never have an oncologist ask, well, what caused this? And let's get rid of what caused it. You'll never hear that question. They only have one thing, and that is kill cancer cells. Well, what caused the cancer cells? Why did this occur in the body? Obviously, the immune system was suppressed, so are we going to unsuppress the immune system? Are we going to stimulate the immune system back into action? So there are many things to do other than just give a poison to the body to kill cancer cells.
It's a psychological warfare on humanity that the pharmaceutical industry is leading with the tool cancer. Keeping cancer as a death verdict is the platform, is a precondition for this entire investment industry to continue.
So very similar with the vaccines, we're seeing these forced chemotherapy incidents. They're linked, aren't they? It's yes. an overarching government, tyrannical government, that comes in and says, you don't have any choice, we're going to tell you what's best.
But the so-called science-driven medicine is being forced upon you now in absolute violation of the American Medical Association's Code of Medical Ethics, which says that the patient must be given the choice, the patient must be informed. Where parents are being told you must submit your children to these interventions, whether you like it or not.
What if someone was going to take your child from you? What if they're going to inject and expose your child to harmful toxins that could threaten their life? What if you knew the treatment they would force could take your child's life? What would you do? This was the heart-wrenching situation that Todd Jones faced when his 2-year-old daughter, Janae, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
We said, okay, let's get her on the treatment. And the treatment it's an intensified treatment for 30 days where they use vincristine, chemotherapy, and steroids. And that little child just got loaded up with that stuff daily. We made a decision that we wanted to, since the cancer was so far down and in remission, as they say, and they told us themselves, that we were like, okay, you know what? Thank you for your business. We're good now. We're going to go ahead and build her up naturally now that the cancer and half of her, system has been, chemoed, chemically cleansed. We're going to go in and put in the natural good stuff now and see how we can get her to respond there. Well, the hospital didn't like that. When that happened, it wasn't 3 days later, and there was that very, very, very loud, aggressive knock at our door. It was the Office of Child Services. And they came and they said, look, the hospital called, you have taken your child out of treatment, and you need to bring your child right back to treatment.
Okay. One emotion that's very detrimental to a cancer patient is fear. What emotion is it that an oncologist will elicit in the cancer patient when they look them in the eye and they say, you've got 3 months to live?
I was diagnosed with stage 2A breast cancer. I ended up doing chemo first, 6 rounds of chemo. Then after that, had surgery, a double mastectomy, and then radiation. So I had the full gamut of treatment. I just thought, this isn't working, and how can you feel so bad? And I thought, I just want to close my eyes, and I just don't want to wake up the next day and do this again. And I thought, this is not really a way of living. This is being poisoned, and I felt it and just didn't have the courage to stop it. At that point, that's where Ty Bollinger and Chris Wark and even Kelly Turner's book had just come out, and then that's when I stopped the chemo. I've watched all of Ty's documentary, the whole entire thing, several times, and a big thank you to each and every one of those doctors who participated, because they truly saved my life.
Eventually, medicine will come to terms, humanity will come to terms with the fact that healing comes from within. And that us, the doctors and the clinics and the medications, are the ones that facilitate that process of healing. So it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to you as a patient. And my true role as a practitioner is to empower and facilitate that healing within.
The only thing that we can do is to keep our self-healing mechanism strong. And in order to keep our self-healing mechanism strong, we have to keep our bodies clean. It all comes back to simplicity. No disease can exist inside of a clean body.
But how do we get our bodies clean? It's through detoxification.
And the most important step for the human body is daily, gentle detoxification. Your large intestine is the mother of all organs. It houses almost 60% of your immune system.
Step 1, we must cleanse our colon. Steps 2 and 3 are the kidneys and the liver.
Liver cleansing is probably one of the most effective ways of boosting your self-healing mechanism. Each liver cleanse is going to boost the liver production and efficiency by 10 to 15%.
So detox step number 4 is to clean the lymphatic system. And step number 5 is a parasite cleanse.
You have 2 kidneys, 1 liver, you have 100 lymph nodes.
Okay.
And if you don't clean out those lymph nodes, there's no way to then drain the tissues. So if we clean the colon, clean the kidneys, clean the liver, lymph nodes would be the last thing to focus on.
And then we would do a parasite cleanse as well after the first liver cleanse, because we knew that then the intestines would be ready to expel them, and then the liver would be able to deal with the toxins produced by the parasites once we start killing them off inside the body.
You have to clean up the body. If you don't detoxify the body, then there are too many things in the way for the body to function correctly, and most of these toxicities are causing a detrimental effect in the body, like increasing oxidative stress, etc., etc. Generally speaking, a person that has cancer, they have a suppressed immune system. The immune system has been damaged and it's lower. So we want to repair that immune system. We want to get it back up. So the modulation of the immune system is key, because you cannot have cancer if you have an adequate and functioning immune system.
The only permanent cure to cancer is your immune system. And nutrition gives your immune system the firepower it needs to keep you well. So without nutrition, you're fighting with no weapons.
I always tell my patients to eat the rainbow, because every pigment in fruits and vegetables actually enters the nucleus of the cell and interacts with your genes, which is why it matters what you eat, right? So if you just eat the rainbow and half your plate is colorful fruits and vegetables, Blueberries, spinach, kale, carrots, tomatoes, persimmons, pomegranates. If you eat color, you are going to also get these phytochemicals. Oregano, thyme, ginger, turmeric. All of the culinary spices not only aid your digestion, but they also have these powerful chemicals. Carnosol is found in rosemary, for example, a very powerful anti-cancer chemical. So we can easily make our diets talk to our genes. Really easy. Anybody can do it.
If we're regular people, substance and energy of planet Earth. And the molecules are all from planet Earth and the energies are all from planet Earth. So, what's going to work best in your Chevy if it's broken? Chevy parts. If the body is broken, do we put in original body parts, which are original molecules and original energies? No! We take them and we twist them a little bit so we can patent them, and of course they don't fit quite right anymore if it's a molecule, or we use an energy that isn't natural to the body, and we expect the body to heal with that?
The big C word is never a death sentence. There's always a path. There's always a path. Some people are living with cancer as a chronic illness, right? So that's fine. It's the same as living with diabetes or high blood pressure or high cholesterol. If we can manage it and keep it at a microscopic level, you carry on with your life. It is not a death sentence.
For me, radiation was not an option. I started doing my own research, immediately went on a organic diet, just decided I'm going to start to cleanse, and I'm not going to follow doctor's orders. And that would be my advice to anyone who has prostate cancer, is if you're recommended to have a prostatectomy or radiation or a chemotherapy, I declined all of that, and I immediately started cleansing, detoxing. I'm pretty much cancer-free. I feel great. I've lost 25 pounds. And I came to San Diego basically to say thank you for, for what you're doing, because it's amazing. I probably, had I not read your book and listened to the DVDs, probably would have followed doctor's orders.
There are answers, there are solutions, and there are roads to full recovery for all types and stages of cancer. With a full understanding of the treatments and preventions, with knowledge of the science and documented evidence that supports the validity of this path, an amazing opportunity exists to see lives restored.
one. There's the third one.
There's three.
There's four.
Four.
One after another.
1, 2, 3, 4.
If you look up, tell me if you see these.
And those are not jets. Those are not.
No, they're not. They're silent. There's no noise.
You're about to witness a strange cloud captured over Santiago, Chile. Now this cloud seems to separate into two pieces right about sunset over Chile. And you're gonna see the front cloud seem to have some kind of propulsion and actually move away from the cloud in the rear. And it even leaves some kind of weird looking chemtrail. Also, you're going to notice a strange circular eye that exists pretty much the entire time in the front cloud. And the rear cloud seems to be affected by some kind of propulsion, and the top of it actually gets bent back.
Un exalmirante de la Marina, el señor William Tompkins, nos decía que estábamos, la humanidad, siendo observada por seres que se encontraban viajando alrededor del universo y en especial, incluso dentro de nuestro sistema solar, dentro de una especie de naves esfera disfrazadas de planetas o de asteroides incluso, algunas de mayor y otras de menor tamaño. Incluso se atrevía a decir que en algunas de estas naves gigantescas se encontraban hasta 200.000 tripulantes en su interior.
in this world without having the ability to recognize another living being, another living soul. To connect with people, to recognize the God in each person is through the eyes, actually. And this is why personal connection, by being next to someone, by being in someone's presence, is so much more relevant than the kind of interfaces that people use today, the electronic interface.
Where did the turning point happen where technology seemed to become like the main force of communication for humans?
Well, I think, really, I think starting with television. You're in front of the TV, receiving the information in a state of super relaxed awareness. In fact, if you think about it, when you're watching television, most people come home very tired at the end of the day and they're watching the news feed. And their wife or their husband is saying, hey, dinner's ready, dinner's ready. And they don't even hear them. And the reason they don't hear them is they're actually in between state. It's a theta alpha state where the brain is quite relaxed, you're attentive and aware, and it's almost a state of light trance, where that data that's coming in is being imprinted on you, in you in a way that is really anchoring. That's why advertising is so effective. That's why the population has begun, the culture shapes based on what the data feed is. And so you look at culture, it's a total reflection of television and media. And it's an illusion, quite frankly. And that illusion sort of takes us further and further away from our humanity, our ability to connect with people. I think that's sort of where it begins. And now, virtually all of our world is situated in the same way. So that our interfaces with people are filtered through an electronic medium. This is a huge mistake. It's absolutely critical for people to connect with each other. One thing that you asked about, what's the big shift? It's about paying attention. It's about paying attention to the fine things.
Being conscious.
Being consciously aware. Sitting here having this conversation, I'm still aware of the wind. I feel the energy in my hands. I see the sun in my face. The sky is still blue. I see the people around me, but I'm still engaged in this conversation by I am paying attention. My awareness is not lost in my words and lost in my emotion. This is a very, very different way of viewing the world. Instead of just talking and thinking and feeling, you're paying attention to what you're thinking. And you are the awareness behind those thoughts. This is fundamentally why when I look in someone's eyes, I recognize that awareness behind their form. I see them as a living soul. I connect with them as a living soul. And that's what triggers that internal spark in another, because you're transferring compassion, empathy, love, consideration in that interaction. That's what enlivens people. That's what triggers that change in people. It's a recognition that you're not alone, that you are connected, that we're all connected. One of the keys for transformation is when you're feeling those emotions, those strong emotions, don't just let yourself run with them. Hesitate for 1 second and pay attention to them. Notice them. You're feeling angry? Don't just be angry. See anger in you. And allow your anger to rise, but notice it. And as you notice it, you immediately control it. Your awareness of it gains control of it, and you recognize it as not you, but a reflection of something going on in the experiences around you. But your choice about how you index this is the critical element. Connecting with each other is the beginning of the evolution. We need to reconnect, set the TVs aside, set the cell phones down, take time each day to connect with the creation around you and the people around you. You know, and we talk too about what's important in life, and everyone attaches so much to things, to what we own, what we possess, how many cars we have. When I think about the obstacles, fear, worry, these are the things that get in the way. These are the things that actually stop you from reaching higher states of consciousness. Because as soon as you run into fear, the possibilities, you go into a fight or fight response, the possibilities of intellectually, emotionally, and on an aware level, a conscious level, connecting, evaporate. That's why the media always throws fear, anger, hatred our way. because that's what they want to trigger in you. That's what they want to take from you. Because in taking that and allowing yourself to fall into that, you lose the dimension of humanity. We're a microcosm of this entire creation. And in this small focal point we call our body, our carriers, we can express that through the soul that we are. And we can connect to the souls that live around us. And everyone we touch with our voice, with our thoughts, with our words, and with what we do.